Well, hello and welcome to 700 Club Israel. 20 years ago, the Israeli government made a decision, and the consequences are being felt to this day. The plan? Land for peace. Cede the Gaza Strip to the Palestinians. Remove Jewish settlers by force if necessary, and hope the gesture would bring both sides closer together. Well, it did not work. Jacob Schwartz from Unpacked Media tells us what went into that decision and what happened afterwards.
There are few conflicts as controversial as that between Israel and the Gaza Strip. Many consider this 25-mile-long region on Israel's southern border to be occupied territory. But what is less known is that there has actually been no Israeli presence in Gaza since 2005. Back then, Israel made a risky and extraordinarily divisive move by unilaterally removing all of its military forces and uprooting all of its civilian settlements from Gaza, leaving the Palestinians to govern themselves. Viewing the Palestinian leadership as unwilling to work together with Israel to advance peace talks, the withdrawal was meant to, in the meantime, both reduce the conflict between Gaza and Israel and help improve Israeli security. Hopefully, this would lead the Palestinian leadership to get back on track and resume peace negotiations with Israel. This ambitious gamble was conducted by none other than Ariel Sharon, one of Israel's most right-wing prime ministers, known for his combative military background and hard-line pro-settlement stance. This was the military leader who titled his 1989 autobiography Warrior, and it was a gamble, one that many consider to be a failure. How did this unilateral move create intense division and tension within Israel, and what were its consequences? To answer this question, let's take a few steps back. Well, maybe more than a few. When we say the Gaza Strip, what exactly are we talking about? Gaza has been inhabited since at least 3000 BCE and has been ruled by dozens of empires. But by the early 16th century, Gaza and the rest of the region called Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire, which stretched across the Middle East. Things stayed that way until the end of World War I, when the region fell to the British. The British continued to administer the land under what they called the Palestine Mandate, or the British Mandate for Palestine, with an aim of determining a future for the Jews and the Arabs living there. They tried to keep a lid on the region, but didn't really go well. There were infighting, riots, revolts on both Jewish and Arab sides. By 1947, Britain was fed up and decided to relinquish their control of the region. The UN voted in favor of the historic partition plan, dividing the region into a Jewish state and an Arab state. The Jewish leadership agreed to the plan, while the Arab leadership declared war. The Jews declared the establishment of the State of Israel on the section of the Palestine Mandate that had been assigned to them. After being attacked by the surrounding Arab armies, Israel pushed back, extending its boundaries to more defensible and viable positions, and emerged from its War of Independence victorious. As for the rest of the Palestine Mandate, during the war, the West Bank with its Palestinian inhabitants was taken by the Jordanians, and Gaza with its Palestinian inhabitants by the Egyptians. And any Jewish communities that had existed in those regions were dismantled. Jump forward to 1967. Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser was threatening the annihilation of Israel and backed it up by moving his tanks and troops into the Sinai Peninsula. With war imminent, Israel launched a preemptive strike that was so successful it crippled the Arab states' air forces, and Israel won the war in just 6 days. In its victory, Israel secured Gaza, Sinai, the Golan Heights, and the West Bank, giving the state more defensible borders and reducing future threats. But by gaining control of these territories, Israel also came to govern a large Arab population who were neither Israeli citizens nor eager to be under Israeli rule. Meanwhile, a grassroots movement began in which Israeli citizens began to return to the newly secured land. Some of these areas, mainly in the West Bank, had been home to Jewish communities in the years leading up to the War of Independence, while others had not been settled by Jews in centuries. Some of the settlers, as they came to be called, were motivated by religious reasons, aiming to restore historical and biblical claims to the land, which had been under ancient Jewish rule for approximately 1,000 years. This sentiment applied mainly in the West Bank, the region surrounding Jerusalem, which had always been central to the Jewish nation and faith. Other settlers, mainly in Sinai, were motivated by a more modern, secular, pioneering perspective, and still others were motivated by security concerns, wanting to establish a populated buffer between Israel and its surrounding Arab enemy states. Eventually, in 1979, Egypt made peace with Israel in exchange for Israel returning the Sinai to the Egyptians. Israel made the difficult sacrifice of uprooting its settlements in Sinai in a tense and emotionally charged atmosphere that was only a taste of what would come 2 decades later during Israel's evacuation of Gaza. After a 6-year-long violent popular uprising known as the First Intifada that began in 1987, Israel attempted to broker a comprehensive peace with the Palestinians. In 1993, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat signed a series of agreements on the White House lawn known as the Oslo Accords, which would serve as a guide for future negotiations. The future negotiations would work to effectively transfer civilian responsibility of Gaza and the West Bank to the newly formed Palestinian Authority. That meant police and security, local government, maintenance of infrastructure, and more, all being run autonomously by the Palestinians. For a short time, peace looked like it might actually be possible, but negotiations began to break down as a wave of suicide attacks by Hamas and the group Islamic Jihad swept across Israel in the mid and late 90s. Other factors included the assassination of Prime Minister Rabin and some say the continuation of building in the West Bank. In a last-ditch effort for peace, U.S. President Bill Clinton hosted Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Palestinian Authority Chairman Yasser Arafat at the 2000 Camp David summit, during which Arafat was presented with an unprecedented offer. But Arafat walked away, stunning Clinton, who years later said, "I killed myself to give the Palestinians a state. I had a deal they turned down that would have given them all of Gaza, between 96 and 97% of the West Bank, and compensating land in Israel." With the breakdown of Camp David, the violence of the Second Intifada erupted in September of 2000, now conducted by both Hamas and Arafat's PLO. Many Israelis became disillusioned about the prospects for peace, and the country elected a right-wing government headed by former military officer Ariel Sharon. In the midst of a Palestinian uprising, with this hardline politician who had a controversial military history as prime minister, you'd expect some unyielding and uncompromising policies, right? Well, that's not exactly what happened. Sharon began, predictably, by cracking down on Palestinian terrorism. But then, in December of 2003, he made an astounding move: the unilateral decision to withdraw 100% of Israeli military forces and civilians from Gaza. Withdrawal from territory was something he had campaigned against, and that was withdrawal from pretty much any territory, let alone withdrawal from 100% of Gaza. It's like, imagine a Republican president suddenly deciding to pass universal health care or sweeping gun control legislation. Sharon formed a coalition with the left-wing opposition in order to pass the plan, calling for the complete withdrawal by the summer of 2005. Now, these weren't some small tent cities where Israelis were slumming it. Gush Katif in the south of Gaza was a block of 17 towns populated by 8,800 Jews in fully built communities with roads, infrastructure, industry, even state-of-the-art greenhouses, much of which had been there for decades. But the facts on the ground were that the Israeli settlers in Gaza were outnumbered by Palestinians more than 170 to 1, and in the 5 years prior, 124 Israelis had been killed by Palestinians in the region. Many believed the cost of maintaining a force of thousands of soldiers in Gaza to protect a relatively small Jewish population no longer made sense. Some also saw these settlements as an obstacle to peace. Others argued that these settlements acted as a buffer to Palestinian aggression, warning that without them, Gaza could turn into a breeding pool for terror and a launching pad for attacks against all of Israel. In the months leading up to the withdrawal, the country was virtually split in two. Sharon's supporters, needless to say, felt betrayed. Those opposing the withdrawal tied orange ribbons to their car, while those in favor flew blue ones. Objections from the orange side cried, "A Jew does not expel a Jew," pleading on the case of the settlers who had no idea where they would go. They insisted it was a travesty that the Palestinians be rewarded for the violence of the Second Intifada and the terrorism that followed it. Massive demonstrations were held. In one protest called the Human Chain, tens of thousands of Israelis held hands for almost 60 miles connecting Gaza to the Western Wall in Jerusalem. But despite such vocal and visible outcry, public opinion polls showed that an almost two-thirds majority were actually placed on the blue side of the debate and supported the disengagement plan in hopes that it would bring peace. Opinions were passionate on both sides, and there was a palpable tension between the two camps. Removing almost 9,000 civilians from their homes was as arduous as it was heartbreaking. There had been apprehension that IDF soldiers might even disobey their orders to carry out the evacuation. But in the end, they followed the commands, some even crying as they removed people from their homes. Many Gush Katif residents felt betrayed by their country. They were promised the construction of new homes, and some were even paid up front for relocation. But with the painfully slow machine that is bureaucracy, many of them found themselves living as refugees in caravan-filled trailer parks, unable to find employment or to move on with their lives. Many desperate residents burned through the government compensation payments just to get by. A third of them even remained in this limbo situation for over a decade, finally signing deals for permanent housing in 2016. So, was the plan a success? Well, Perhaps, if your name is Hamas, the Islamist terrorist group was elected to power 4 months after the pullout, defeating Fatah, the political branch of the PLO, in an unexpected turnaround. This ended years of Fatah domination in Palestinian politics. Fatah wasn't willing to hand over control so easily, which led to a brief civil war in Gaza. During this war, Hamas took over Gaza and executed Fatah supporters, further consolidating their power. Once in control, instead of building up their economy and infrastructure and providing for Palestinians' daily needs, the Hamas leadership used its resources to wage war on Israel. Hundreds of millions of dollars in humanitarian aid and supplies were used to launch thousands of rocket attacks at civilian population centers throughout Israel. Materials were repurposed to construct miles of underground tunnels in order to infiltrate Israel and conduct terror attacks, abductions, and smuggle weapons. A generation of children in southern Israel were raised to know that when they hear a siren, they had 15 to 30 seconds to find shelter. The continuous terrorism and rocket attacks provoked Israeli military retaliation time and again. Israelis and Palestinians were forced to endure 3 consecutive wars in Gaza between 2008 and 2014. The plan to disengage from Gaza brought about great tension and division within Israeli society, between politicians and opposition parties, between blue ribboners supporting the withdrawal and orange ribboners opposing it, between Israeli soldiers and settlers. But what is important to recognize is that when push came to shove, Israelis respected the rule of law, and the violence that many predicted would occur within Israeli society didn't materialize. Still, it remains a source of great pain to a large portion of Israeli society, and one that influences many Israelis' willingness to concede more territory without a guarantee of peace.
Well, we want to thank our friends at Unpacked for that video. Unpacked is an open-door media brand. Make sure to follow them on YouTube, Facebook, and all the social media platforms. And for more great content and to support their mission, go to unpacked.media. Just want to add a footnote to that wonderful story, and that is we have to recognize what happened when Israel gave up land or had sort of an exchange, if you will, land for peace, and it just never worked. Go all the way back to 1948, tremendous military victory. The entire world predicted they would lose. Here's a brand new country, and all the surrounding Arab nations declare war. Israel declares independence, and by midnight, all the countries had declared war against this brand new nation. Well, who won it? Israel won it. But in the aftermath of that war, with Jordan taking what was called Transjordan, which included East Jerusalem, included the West Bank. When they took that, what did they do? Well, they dismantled every Israeli settlement, every Jewish settlement. In the Jewish quarter of the old city, it was illegal to be Jewish. You couldn't be Jewish and walk the streets of the Jewish quarter. You couldn't go to the Western Wall and pray. You couldn't do any of those things. All of the synagogues there were destroyed, and then the Jewish cemeteries were desecrated. That gives us a very clear picture of what the Arabs view, how they view the Jews. It doesn't get any more stark. And the same thing happens again and again and again. When they have any kind of control over an area, what do? They build up weapons to attack Jews. They eliminate synagogues, Jewish residents. They engage in what we should be calling ethnic cleansing. In the current world situation and current situation going in Gaza, who's being blamed for genocide? Who's being blamed for ethnic cleansing? All of those things. Well, the Israelis are, but that's truth stood on its head. It's an absolute lie, absolute falsehood. The ones calling for genocide are Hamas, and when you hear from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that's a call to wipe Israel off the map. The Gaza pullout forced thousands of Israelis from their homes. What took them decades to build was torn down in just a week. In 2015, former resident Anita Tucker sat down with Scott Ross to share what happened when she left and why she hopes to go back.
For decades, Anita Tucker successfully farmed in her community of Netzer Hazani.
She helped build the Jewish enclave of Gush Katif from the sand dunes of Gaza.
This is the main town of Gush Katif, Neve Dekalim, and the buildings that you see here are still standing from what we know last. At the beginning, they were a university for women Palestinian terrorists.
What a story. Like a bad movie.
Tucker told CBN's Scott Ross about one of her first encounters that still seems hard to believe.
One day we see, like out of no place comes, like out from under the sand dune comes this Arab with his keffiyeh and his long galabiyah, his long Arab robe. And there comes out this other Arab, a little bit intimidating. And all of a sudden we see they have bread and salt in their hands in the Muslim tradition. Bruchim habayim, welcome, they say to us. We're so glad that you're here.
And these are Arabs.
Arabs, and they say, we're so happy that you're here. Maybe there'll be some work for our people.
The communities began to thrive, and over 30 years, agriculture grew to a $60 million per year industry, providing 15% of Israel's exported vegetables.
Were your Arab neighbors surprised by your success, that you had brought something of a blessing out of a curse?
They were happy with that blessing because there was work for their people. We taught them modern agriculture.
So you had Arab neighbors, and you got along with each other. There was no conflict, nothing.
No.
Where did it break down?
When the world started talking about peace, because I always say they misspelled it, and instead of writing P-E-A-C-E, somebody by mistake wrote P-I-E-C-E, and they started tearing us to pieces and tearing the Arabs living in Gaza to pieces. I think the real trouble started when they brought Yasser Arafat to the Gaza Strip.
As time went by and talk of the so-called disengagement grew, Tucker, then known as the Celery Lady, talked to CBN News in 2005 about the prospect of being forced from her home.
It can't be that people who are living peacefully in a place and it turned into a flourishing, beautiful area should have to leave their home. And around us, there are people who are trying to murder us, throwing rockets at us, trying to kill us.
The 9,000 residents of Gush Katif decided not to voluntarily leave. They felt they had settled biblical land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob with the blessing of the Israeli government. After more than 30 years of successful building and farming on the Gaza sand dunes, it took just a week to obliterate Jewish life there. Lorenz Baziz and her husband were also farmers. Now she works in the visitor center that tells the history of Gush Katif.
Aside from dealing with the hardships of the people and the rebuilding of the communities, we felt that we have a story to tell. It's a whole huge story of pioneering the land of Israel. Although there are a lot of hardships, there are also communities that are flourishing.
The community of Netzer Hazani is one that stuck together. Some 100 families built this new community, kept the old name, and moved in 3 years ago.
All the time, from the minute that we left, we switched mode and said, we are building again. We're staying together as a community.
Do you know what's happened to your own land there?
We know the soldiers who were there. Our town is back to being the sand dunes that were.
Would you have any desire to go back to Gaza?
I'll be the first in line. As soon as it's safe to go there and the government says come back, I'll be the first in line.
Well, that's a heartfelt story that you won't see anywhere else. We want to bring you the real stories of what's happening in Israel today, what the past has taught us. And one of the things it's teaching us is there can be no land for peace. It just doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is that we have this sort of Western idea that the other side wants to be reasonable, that they want to have a hope and they want to have a future and they want to build cities for their children, their grandchildren. They want to live a good life, all of these things. Well, that's not the case for Hamas. That's not a case for Hezbollah. That's not a case for the Iranian people. What do they want to do? Well, they want to establish Sharia law throughout the land of Israel and return it to the name Palestine. And that was a name that the Emperor Hadrian created when he tried to wipe the Jews out all the way back in 135 AD. He renamed it. He wanted Israel to be wiped off the map, and he renamed it Syria Palestina, and he picked Palestina after the Philistines, the traditional enemy of the Israeli people. Well, one of the great miracles of the last century is the rebirth of the modern state of Israel, fulfilling the prophecy, can a nation be born in a day? Let us resolve we're going to stand with Israel. We're not going to buy into the lie that somehow or other, if Israel can just be convinced to negotiate. No, it's Hamas, and it's the ideology of hate. That's what we need to stand against, and we need to stand very firm. Beersheba is known as the capital of the Negev. Its roots go back to the days of Abraham and Isaac. Recently, it was hit by several volleys of Iranian missiles, and CBN Israel is in this historic city, providing much-needed aid and counseling.
CBN Israel is in Beersheba right now, which is a city in southern Israel that was really hard hit by the war with Iran. Right now we're doing a food distribution, and you know, the food here is for single moms and widows who live on the periphery, and some of this might be the only food that they will be able to put on the table this week. Let's go take a look.
I'm Mariana Gall. The name of our organization is Streams in the Desert. And we are located here in Beersheba, but we work with underprivileged families all over the south of Israel, from Eilat to Ashkelon. Widows, orphans, strangers in the land. But we take widowhood in an expanded biblical definition that includes single moms. Because I don't know if you know, but the word widow in the Bible does not mean a woman whose husband is dead. It means a woman who lost her covering. We know it out of context. We provide humanitarian assistance and also counseling, small groups, parental guidance. And we also cooperate with many different organizations in the land. But one of our main partners, and have been for years, is CBN. And we do a lot of work with CBN, specifically with single moms. Arik is helping us to find subsidies for different things that they might need. He comes every couple of months to meet with our moms and see how we can help them better. Because of everything our families just went through in the recent weeks, we're trying to support and encourage them, and CBN have brought food parcels for them. Some of them were not able to work and found themselves even in a greater economic struggle. What makes a difference is for them to know that they're loved. So I think some of these groceries actually mean yes, food on the table, no food on the table. I want to say that the partnership that we have with CBN, bringing people together, bringing ministries together with the same vision, the same focus. And I want you to just say thank you for this work.
If you're part of the CBN Israel family, if you're part of those who are giving to help people in Israel, thank you. It's because of you and your giving that all of that is happening. And whether it was immediate relief after October 7th, ongoing relief for the immigrants into Israel, but here after the Iranian attack, you're on the ground, you're delivering food, you're delivering help, and most importantly, you're delivering love. If you want to be a part of it, it's real simple. Pick up a phone and call us and say, yes, you can count on me. I want to be a monthly giver to CBN Israel. 1-800-350-2230 is the number to call. You can also go to the website, cbn.com/support Israel, or you can text to give. That's a new way to give. Support Israel. Just type that into the text line of your phone and send that to 71777, and we'll send you a link to a monthly giving page, and so you can be part of blessing Israel every single month. Be a part of it. Give now. 1-800-350-2230. We leave you with this word from Zephaniah. The Lord, the King of Israel, is with you. Never again will you fear any harm. May that prophecy come true in our life. God bless you. We'll see you next week.